Hello everyone, Zelrant here, and today I thought with Etheria Restart we'd talk about my top 5 sets within the module and shell system. Now I just want to preface this with that these are kind of just subjective thoughts on some of the sets, and they're going to be tailored towards specific teams or synergies, so these aren't going to be your generic, you can throw on anybody type sets. They're just the ones I think that could have the biggest impact when it comes to specific units that they'll work with, because they're not going to work with everybody in every team, but if it works on a team, I think they will have a good impact. Now, all of the sets in here have their place. Like, I haven't seen, like, just a outright bad set yet, but it'll really also be determined based on when the meta starts forming on what might be the best sets, especially when you're trying to counter meta. But let's just go ahead and get right into them, and I'll give my thoughts on some of these sets. And then kind of some examples that I can think of with their value. So we're going to actually look at the sets through the matrix here so you can see all of them. So the first one is actually going to be Harvest. I think it's my favorite of the attack one. Attack has a lot of the good ones, and like your main DPS, you may potentially want to try and get multiple of the attack sets within your build, but I really like the potential of Harvest here, because I think especially, and a lot of this is going to revolve around PvP, just because I think it's going to be more important to have your sets really well set up in PvP to try and counter meta. So this is kind of my thought process is around PvP more than PvE here. And this one is when attacking, if the target's HP is above 50%, additionally ignore 30% of their defense. I think this one can be very strategic in use, especially if you're fighting against a high defensive type unit. One of them we've already kind of covered was Tsukio Mi, who has she is built off defense. Like, you want to give her tons of defense because she does damage off of that. So being able to ignore something like that can be very strategic in use there. And you can, if you can time it kind of correctly with this, and you have like a damage dealer that may be a very hard hitting one, if you can set it up so that maybe they're down to like 55 health, and then you have your main DPS come and then just hit them, this could be something where you could one-shot them. And that might be very important, especially with somebody that's kind of constantly getting topped off. And so I think this has a very strategic use. Now, and this one only utilizes 8 of the point system, so you don't have to go all the way to 12 on this one. So you're going to be able to afford this one a little bit easier than, say, if you wanted to just go straight for 45% plus attack here, you need to go all the way to 12 of them. Well, this one's only going to use up 8. And so I really like this one. I think it's fairly simple in what it is, but being able to, as you know with many games, being able to ignore defense is generally well liked in a lot of, and can really ramp up damage within your teams. So I really like that one. We'll kind of see how that one plays when it comes to other teams. I haven't looked at every unit in the game, like I said, but I do already know one unit that scales off of defense, that this could be very useful in doing a significant amount of damage to them if you can get them kind of right in the middle of the health. So we have that one. And then, I mean, I don't really have any of these of the top ones in the HP healing. I wouldn't consider these like my top ones, but these are going to be generically good on your healing sustain units here. But then we go down here. My second one is going to be Bramble here. And I think this one's actually going to be really good on, and this one's another one where I think Tsukio Mi, this one will be very good on her. And that is because, one, she scales off defense. So right off the bat, you get the defense plus 10%. But the other part here is that the second part here, upon hit, enemies have a 25% to counterattack with a basic attack. Now that might not seem like a lot, as she's not the type to do a significant amount of damage. She can do damage because she scales off defense. But when it comes to doing her basic attacks, and I'll have to verify this, I have not tested this, but when you actually look at a unit like her, who's the kind of the person that I have in my thought process with this, is her basic attack here, Stinger, is that she attacks and utilizes her defense, but the last part here, which is to a single enemy, increases the turn meter of the ally with the highest attack. Now, I don't know if when it mentions basic attack that it's meaning the trigger their this basic attack, or if it's just an attack. But if it is triggering this one, which is what I think how it works, then you can take advantage of that if people are attacking her to potentially increase the attack meter of your hardest hitter, especially if you have multiple people targeting her, trying to kill her, and she triggers that multiple times. If you get lucky and trigger it multiple times, you have a potential to really ramp up the speed of your highest attack damage dealer with her. And so that is why I really like that one. Now, we'll kind of have to see how it works in practice, but I really think that has a lot of potential for her, as well as other taunting units in the game as well. You could say somebody like, I mean, I don't know how good it would be on someone like Tiamat because she doesn't care about defense as much, but that has a lot of potential if that basic attack triggers something that you may really like to see happen multiple times. So I really like that one. So that's kind of my second favorite of the group here. And then like the rest of mine are all like all the speed ones. And I think a lot these ones are going to probably be generically good in PvP overall. Speed is going to be, I think, very important in this. I think you're going to pretty much see a lot of people advised Swift Rush overall. This is going to be kind of your generic, hey, I don't know what else to throw on them. Here's one. I think this is going to be just a generic set you should farm in the game overall, because speed is, I think, going to be paramount. And if you can get a generically good speed set, this is something that you can easily swap in and out of different people. So as you build different teams, or as the meta shifts, you should be able to just pretty much throw a very good set of this gear on anybody, and it should be very good. So if you get some really good solid substats on a Swift Rush set, I think this is going to be just overall very good. And I think this is going to be like one of the first sets that I kind of farm within Global there, just for that reason, because I think it can fit anywhere. The other one is going to be this one here, Strive. And so this one, I think, like, these two, I think, could pair extremely. Bramble and Strive, I think, are going to pair extremely well together. Tsukiyo Mi is the one that I'm really thinking of with these ones, but I guarantee you it's going to work with other units as well. So you have this one where they have a 25% chance to counterattack, but on Strive, it's similar, where after being attacked, advances turn meter by 10%. So now it accelerates, they can counterattack, but now they can also advance their turn meter, and thus get them maybe potentially a little bit ahead of the enemy to be able to do their next move a little bit quicker. And so like her, for example, it might give her another chance to attack again, even if it's just a basic attack, and you can now get your highest attacker up and running again. Because one of the biggest things with her is to advance the turn meter with her basic attacks of your highest attack damage dealer. So I think that one is going to be a very good set as well, that can be utilized not only on her, but others as well, or like a taunting unit, because that's the big thing with a taunting unit, is they should be getting hit. If they're able to get their taunt off very well, they should be getting hit more often, and by getting hit more often, they're now advancing their turn meter quicker. Another one I think this could potentially work on, even though defense isn't really valuable to them, but it could throw off the enemy. And that's one thing with PvP. I think there's going to be a lot of potential with kind of what I would consider an off build, which is you build something that the other side may not be expecting with the unit. So someone like a Tiamat, who has a taunt in her, but she scales off HP, so you're losing that little bit of HP advantage by having this. But because of that, and she is going to get attacked more often, you may be able to attack with her more often, which may throw off what the enemy in PvP is expecting. So I think there may be some potential with this one to throw some kinks in PvP, so you can kind of have some opportunities that others may not be expecting. I don't know how valuable 10% is going to be, though. This may require your unit to be getting hit multiple times, so we'll have to kind of see with that. But overall, I really like the idea of that one, and that one's going to really need to have more testing within legit PvP environments to see how well that works, but I do really like that one overall. And then you're going to have the other one, and I think this one has a lot of potential. And I think it's going to be... I think it's going to have a high potential to be, like, mandatory within your teams, potentially. I'm not... Just somebody on your team. I think it's going to be extremely useful, but we'll just have to see as they get more testing on this. But Time Weave here is probably my favorite of all of them. And that is, one, you have effect accuracy plus 18%, and that's going to be very important in being able to apply whatever debuff that you're trying to apply to the enemies, because you already have their generic odds of it happening, which is, hey, this has a 50% chance of applying this debuff to the enemy. Well, then you also, after that, if you trigger yes, apply this to the enemy on that odds, then you have the next I won't call it a dice roll, but the next battle, which is effective accuracy versus effective resistance, which I believe I don't know if it's on any of the sets specifically, but there's another stat, effective resistance. And so you have to pair up your effective accuracy amongst the enemies, and you have to win that fight as well. So it can make, if you have a very resistant team, it can be very hard for if you have a debuff heavy team to apply all of them if they're very resistant to it. So just having effective accuracy, I think, is overall good there. But the second part, and this one does require 12, so this one will be an expensive one to put on your kit, but I feel like this is going to be extremely useful to have on just at least one person, and as that is because at the start of turn, there is a 35% chance to reduce the cooldown of all Animus skills by 1 turn. Now, I don't know if this is like a stacking one, if you put this set on all of your team, if it's potential, if you hit this on multiple people to reduce the cooldown multiple times, because it doesn't really state here that you can't do that. I'm going to guess there's a limit. Like, I'm going to guess you can't put this on all 4 units, and then if all of them win this roll, that you reduce the cooldown by 4, because that would be pretty insane. Now, unlikely, because it's only 35% chance, but if you have 4 people with this set on, and you're rolling a dice, 35% chance, there's a good odds that you could reduce the cooldown by 2, but I'm not sure it's going to stack in that manner. But even then, 35% of the time, so you can estimate this, if you want to do the math on it, to be about every 1 in 3 turns, you're able to reduce the skill cooldowns and it says all Animus skills by 1 turn. And as you already know, there's a lot of skills that have like 4 turn cooldowns. And so if you can trigger this, because this happens at the start of the turn, there's a 35%. So if you get lucky and you trigger this like twice in a row, you might have your big hitters that just did a 4-turn cooldown one, having it come back up the turn after. And that can be, I think, extremely useful and really turn the tide in PvP if you're triggering this. So I think this is outright potentially going to be like one of the more important ones to have within your teams, potentially on multiple people, if you can get multiple rolls at this. Even if it doesn't stack where you can get like 2 cooldown reduction here, if you have 2 people with this, are you getting 2 35% chance rolls on reducing all the cooldowns? Because that would be extremely useful as well. Now, I have not tested this. I will be testing all these types of things. I want to mess with this when it comes to the beta, as well as when we actually launch. I know a lot of other people are going to be testing these with the builds as well. But yeah, that is one. That is my probably top and favorite of all of the sets. It's just going to need to see how well it works in practice. And that's going to be like with all these sets. But yeah, that is my top 5. And like I said, these are not generically, other than maybe the speed ones, but these are going to still be situational. Every set in here has its use and are going to be applied to units based on your needs and how you want to build your specific teams. Now, I'm not actually going to be trying meta teams. I'm going to probably try and do off meta teams. It's just kind of being something unique, because you're going to have like your main core couple teams that are like the meta teams that you're going to see a lot of people trying to play. I want to play off of that, like maybe the off meta or the counter to the meta or some other aspect, and utilizing sets with those kind of key things like this can be ways to do that. But yeah, that's just my top 5 right there. When we get into the beta, I know a lot of people, you want to start farming some of these sets so you can kind of test them out yourselves. Now, you're not going to be able to get to end game and very easily get some of these, like Time Weave requiring 12. You're going to pretty much have to put this entire set on someone to reach it, because it's going to be pretty hard, I believe, in the beginning to get all 12 of these filled. But if you push far enough in, you should be able to do that and test it out. But yeah, that is just my thoughts on what I consider the top 5 of all of the sets, and some that you may want to look at when it comes to building your teams. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.